It's one of the UK's biggest data leaks in recent history. Thousands of Afghans, some of whom worked with the British forces, had their personal details exposed, putting their lives at risk under the Taliban. Some were secretly resettled to the UK, but many were left behind. How did such a catastrophic leak happen? What are the repercussions? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, the UK government has apologised after a personal data breach compromised the identities of Afghans working with the UK military. News of this leak has only just emerged after a super injunction preventing the media from reporting the story was lifted. So, how did such sensitive information get leaked? And what's the UK government doing now to protect those in danger?
4 years ago, Afghans desperately tried to escape Taliban rule after Western forces withdrew from their country. In an unprecedented data breach, the personal details of thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with UK forces, was mistakenly leaked by the UK Ministry of Defence. Fearing they might be targeted by the Taliban, the UK government secretly resettled Afghans in the UK.
This serious data incident should never have happened. It may have occurred 3 years ago, under the previous government, but to all those whose information was compromised, I offer a sincere apology today on behalf of the British government.
It was in February 2022 that a spreadsheet of nearly 19,000 Afghans who wanted to move to the UK was accidentally emailed by a British defence official. The leak was only discovered in August 2023 when an Afghan national posted some of the names on Facebook. The next month, the UK High Court imposed a super injunction which blocked all public reporting of the data breach. Shortly after, a secret Afghan relocation scheme to the UK, worth nearly £500 million, was set up to help those named in the data breach. Last week, the super injunction was lifted and the media was able to report on this story. Some of those named are still in Afghanistan.
Now, these are people who, according to the Taliban, are seen as enemies. So there is a very real threat to life of people who are in Afghanistan. And our clients have essentially told us that the ones that are based here, they don't feel safe that they can ever return to Afghanistan. And they also now feel that they might have to look over the shoulder in case someone who's sympathetic to Taliban tries and brings harm to them or their family members.
The leak also included information about the Afghans' families and details of over 100 UK officials, including members of Special Forces and MI6, the UK Secret Service. So how can those left behind find safety from the Taliban, and does the UK have a responsibility to relocate all of them?
Well, before we meet the rest of our panel, earlier I spoke to General Sir Richard Barrons. He's a former British Army officer. Sir Richard, just give us your reaction to begin with to this whole fiasco.
So my reaction, and that of many others, is one of horror and a degree of shock that actually a leak of this nature is even possible is appalling. And it's right that the consequences of it have had the sort of serious consideration that we've seen.
So which was more embarrassing, the initial cock-up or the subsequent cover-up?
So I wouldn't use the term cover-up, but I think the initial leak is the most shocking thing, because what's happened is that a list of names of more than 18,000 Afghans who served alongside the British forces in Afghanistan are therefore identified with us and took the same risks as many soldiers did, have had their names leaked in a way that the Taliban and others may well have had access to. And so that has put lives in jeopardy as a result of what I very much want to believe is a mistake rather than anything clearly malevolent, but a mistake that just should not happen.
Now, the UK government says their lives are not in danger. Do you believe that?
So I think the UK government is equivocating on whether these people are in danger or not. So I agree that the risk to most of those 18,000 plus Afghans is probably quite small. And in any case, the Taliban, who have an interest in them, they have many other ways of identifying people who served with the British. It is, after all, Afghanistan that we're talking about, and communities are very close there. I think there is anecdotal evidence appearing that people who were connected to the list have been murdered, but whether that is a direct link or some sort of contiguous link, very hard to tell. But the point is, people should never be put in jeopardy like this anyway.
Is there a problem here with the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, handling very sensitive data?
So if you look at the history of the MOD over decades, that there have been incidents where classified information has been leaked. And in most cases, this has been the result of people not following the rules for whatever reason. And sometimes it was just carelessness or tiredness, and it's had a significant effect. And I think we should align this leak of information with a recent breach of a major airfield belonging to the Air Force called Bryce Norton, where some demonstrators got in and they seriously damaged a very expensive and very important military aircraft. So I think on both counts, there are challenges to the MOD's physical and information security culture. And what we need to remember is, in this much harder world that we live in, the comfortable post-Cold War era long evaporated. There are states and other actors that really want to do the UK harm. And so the MOD is going to have to make sure that it is far more watertight than it is proven of late.
So what needs to happen right now?
I think the first thing, and the MOD is doing this, is they've got to be really clear how this leak occurred. Was it lack of training or education or experience or lack of supervision or tiredness? Because they need to know why in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. And the second and far more important thing is the MOD needs to double down on its security culture, and that there must be consequences for individuals who fail to follow what are really clear, if rather stringent, rules. And also, I think, consequences for their supervisors, because this is a chain of command challenge. It's a leadership responsibility to get right. It can't just all trickle down to an individual who's had a bad day.
And Sir Richard, how concerned are you that the names of elite soldiers and SAS members are now in the public domain?
So, of course I am. It appears that there may have been leaks of the names of Special Forces soldiers and intelligence operators on the same database of Afghans. And now it also appears that in what is intended to be a very in-house, small circulation, regimental journal, it has also revealed to anyone who's really interested, and people are really interested, where people may be serving with the Special Forces. And I can imagine a world of 30 years ago where that didn't really matter because these things were essentially family level information, but it really matters now. And things like regimental journals are not really read by many people, but they are read by the Russian and Chinese embassies, and we should recognize that.
Well, let's meet our guests. In Swansea in Wales, we have Joe Seaton. Joe is former English manager and deputy director at the British Council, Afghanistan. In London, Adnan Malik, he's head of data protection, that's a Barings law, and is representing some of the Afghans who have been named in that data leak. And in Northamptonshire in England, Gulwali Passarlay, former Afghan refugee and author of The Lightless Sky. Gentlemen, you're all very welcome to this roundtable. Adnan, to you first of all, you believe this leak has already had deadly repercussions. Just tell us what you know.
That's correct. On a near daily basis now, since the super injunction has been lifted, it's been so widely publicized by media outlets far and wide. We receive correspondences from our clients in Afghanistan that are essentially telling us that as a result of this, the Taliban are actively looking for individuals on the list. We've had clients who are based in the United Kingdom tell us that the Taliban are raiding their homes, they're coming to their house, they're going to their friends, families' houses, looking for people, and there's a lot of aggression from the Taliban, and this has all spiked up as a result of the data breach. People are in genuine fear of their life now. The Taliban has also categorically stated any individual who is named on this will not be allowed to leave Afghanistan, neither will they let that individual move freely. There's a gentleman I was speaking to today who worked as a triple, which is the UK-based equivalent of special forces, has told me that the Taliban have gone and looked and found his brother, and they're essentially threatening his brother with harm, only because his brother was on the list. So our client was on the list. His brother's done nothing to the Taliban. So the very grave and real consequences that everyday people are facing as a result of this data breach, unfortunately.
Thanks, Adnan. Gulwali, to you. You escaped Afghanistan. Just tell us how you think people will be now feeling if their name is on that data leak and they're still inside territory controlled by the Taliban.
Sure. I mean, there's two things. One, people who are already in a difficult situation in Afghanistan, those especially who work with the government or work with foreign forces, there was always suspicions of activities against those people from the Taliban, although they said there was amnesty for everyone, but people who are targeted for their beliefs and their ideologies in their work. And now with this list, I mean, it's scary because people had no idea they were on the list, or those who are not even on the list, for example, the 20,000 people, they may be those who are not on the list, they will still be stressing out about it and being depressed. And I was actually involved with the Home Office doing some advice, giving some advice on taking people out of the hotels a few years ago. And there were a lot of families I met across the country who had loved ones back home, who had friends and relatives and colleagues, and they were concerned for their safety. And with this leak and the publicity it got and how it was hidden from the public view, it's just like, I'm not surprised that the UK has done this. I mean, of course, this was maybe a genuine mistake by the part of the soldier or the person at the Ministry of Defense, but ultimately, like, as an Afghan, I'm not surprised, unfortunately.
Gulwali, one final point to you. Do you agree with the lifting of the super injunction then?
Yeah, of course, there shouldn't have been a super injunction in the first place, because there needs to be transparency, and these people who are on the list should have been helped and got out of the country. Actually, there are about 17,000 Afghans, the last time I checked, are stranded in Pakistan. There are Afghans actually stranded in Iran. There are actually Afghans who have British visas but can't come here because the Home Office supposedly don't have accommodation for them. So,
thank you. Joe, to you, this is just a complete mess from start to finish, isn't it?
It is unsurprising, sadly. I mean, in my case, I was involved with trying to ensure the safety of over 100 teachers who I trained, managed and worked alongside during 4 years based on the British Embassy in Kabul, working for the British Council. And their plight in particular was very tragic because we'd employed them to teach UK values, including equality, diversity and inclusion across Afghanistan at great risk to themselves. And we all knew that the British Council had already been targeted 3 times by the Taliban, those attacks leading to a number of fatalities. So we knew the people we were employing were going to be in danger. And we really should have ensured that we had the right plans in place for all the possible eventualities and outcomes. Unfortunately, in spite of perhaps best intentions, our planning wasn't rigorous enough. We weren't ready for departure. We didn't have a plan for how we would treat the partners that we had in country and how we would treat the people on the ground who we'd got to work for us and do our work on the ground. And again, this data breach just highlights perhaps how little we value our partnerships when it comes to the crunch and how little we think through our plans in the long run. And tragically, a lot of people have once again been put at risk as a result of this poor planning. And instead of demonstrating best practice, we seem to have demonstrated worst practice and how not to do it when it comes to security of information.
Adnan, talk to me about what happens now or what you would like to see happen next.
Well, I think there's an obligation on the Ministry of Defense, on the government, to assist those individuals that are in Afghanistan, that are in third countries, and that satisfy the requirements under the Arab scheme to be brought here. While I was in court for many of these hearings where the Minister of Defense was vigorously fighting to have the super injunction in place, one of the issues we raised is that there is a grave threat to life. There is a significant threat to life of individuals based in Afghanistan and other countries. The ones who are in the United Kingdom might still be somewhat safe, but this was one of the reasons why we wanted this lifted. The Minister of Defense had an opportunity to inform everyone prior to the lifting of the super injunction. They chose not to do that. What should have been done is should have been informed several weeks before the injunction was lifted, and then the injunction was lifted. For now, I think everyone who isn't here should be brought here. within once the necessary checks have been carried out. And the Ministry of Defense should change their systems. This doesn't happen again. And those people who have been affected by the data breach should rightfully get compensation for this. These are individuals.
Adnan, can I ask you?
Yes.
You will be very much aware of the political atmosphere right now in the United Kingdom. We're seeing more protests against asylum seekers' hotels. How do you think this will play out with the UK public? I mean, what would you say to people who will bang the drum and say, we have enough asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, why are these people coming here? What would you say to that line of thought?
These individuals aren't asylum seekers. They've all qualified through a route that the government opened up. Additionally, these are people who assisted the UK armed forces when they were in Afghanistan. They put their lives at the risk. They put their own family members' lives at risk. And they were informed that they would be brought to safety once all of this comes to an end. They've done their part. There is an obligation on the UK government to do their part. These are people who bring skills here. They don't want to come here and get benefits. These were people who were working individuals in their own country. They're very happy to contribute.
Thanks, Adnan. Gulwali, that's a very good point, isn't it? That these were people who risked absolutely everything to help the United Kingdom.
Well, when I was in Afghanistan growing up, I saw these people as traitors anyways, because, but now, I mean, my view has changed. But, growing up in conservative Afghanistan as a child, those who are collaborating with the West were basically collaborators. But anyhow, the issue is not just they will contribute. As an Afghan, I'm actually sad that these brain drain are leaving Afghanistan. About 8 million Afghans have left Afghanistan in the last 3-4 years alone. That's the population of Scotland. And a lot of these doctors and teachers and people we need in the country are fleeing because of the Taliban oppressions and suppression and freedom of rights and freedoms and so on and so forth. I think there needs to be more pressure as well, or more diplomacy to resolve this issue. But of course, those guys who are on the list or who apply to the UK, they should be considered and given the benefits of the doubts and brought to safety. But again, I have two views. One is that they be brought to. I'm a humanitarian. I care about both sides. So I don't want these educated Afghans to leave Afghanistan. I want them to use their skills and experiences rebuilding Afghanistan. But I see that is not really a possibility at the moment because all the people in charge are mullahs and religious scholars, supposedly, who doesn't really know much about the fields they're leading. So we need Afghans who could actually rebuild Afghanistan, but I understand their safety is at risk. So if you see, I have these conflicting views, and it's, if you know what I mean, yeah.
I understand. Thank you, Gulwali. Joe, back to you. I mean, do you think the Ministry of Defence will now get its act together in terms of data protection? This is a first world country with a serious military behind it, and this has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was working on the British Embassy in Kabul, we were running a number of programs in partnership with the MOD and the Afghan National Army as well. And they're actually excellent educational and training programs. And we had to adhere to such high standards of data security and information security. And I thought that was something that the UK would always be exemplary in. I don't want to criticise our Ministry of Defence because, they did so much excellent work after the Taliban took power, to try and get so many people to safety. However, it is tragic and very disappointing what's happened with this data breach. And I only really hope that, we learn a massive lesson from this and really tighten up our approach to something that we should be world leaders in so that nothing like this can ever happen again.
And Joe, it turns out that names of Special Forces soldiers have also been out there in the public domain as well. This has been a really bad week for the UK Armed Forces.
Yeah, I think that, it is a disastrous week. And I think that our time in Afghanistan and the sudden unplanned departure has cast a really long shadow for the MOD, for the Foreign Office and for our reputation overseas. And I just hope we can rebuild that with, future excellent work, future best practice and future activities which benefit the wider world and not something which puts people's lives in danger, people under threat and people's wider families in danger as well.
Thanks, Joe. Adnan, to you. So your law firm is taking a class action against the UK government. I read that you have, 1,000 people signed up so far for this class action. What kind of line is this going to take? How long will it take?
So Barings Law represents over 1,200 claimants as of now. We want to have this matter concluded relatively quickly. Our clients, the ones who are based in the United Kingdom, ones who are based in Afghanistan, want there to be a quick solution to this. One, because it's bringing a lot of issues from the Taliban to those that are based in Afghanistan. So we want the Minister of Defense to engage with us. We're happy to sit, across the table and try and agree some sort of mechanism, like I said, to draw a line under it. Whether the Minister of Defense will do that, we'll find out. But we are open to having this matter concluded relatively quickly.
But Adnan, what level of kickback do you think you will get from the UK government?
I mean, based on our very early estimates, we believe the claimants should be entitled to a five-figure sum.
Five-figure sum. Gulwali, talk to me again about the people still in Afghanistan. How will they be feeling knowing that they tried everything, they gave everything, they risked everything, and this is what they've been left to pick up?
Yeah, definitely. From speaking to people, especially on social media, and Afghans who work with foreign forces, they feel betrayed. They feel abandoned. Not just these who work with the British forces or the foreign forces, but just generally Afghans in general, like especially the youth and the people who had hopes and aspiration, who wanted to rebuild their country. They've been let down. And so right now, especially, I can't imagine what the people are going through, especially those who put their faith and trust in the British system and hoping they will get justice and freedom and safety. And they've been left in such a way. Not only that, their life were put in greater risk without even them knowing. And as Adnan said, they should have been informed earlier on and should have been brought to safety. I mean, 19,000 people, 20,000 people, that's not a huge number, but then, you're putting them and their families at risk. I mean, to be honest, in Afghanistan, in places like Afghanistan, the authority just needs an excuse to pick on you. So this is a good excuse for them.
Joe, to you, I see some figures involved in this relocation scheme. Currently, it's cost £400 million, projected to reach as much as £6 billion. These are extraordinary sums of money.
Yeah, absolutely. They are extraordinary sums of money, but I think that needed to be thought about a long time ago, even at the time that we were going in to assist or occupy or be present in other countries. We had to think of the long view. What will happen? Best case scenario, will we be able to rebuild this country and help it stand on its own 2 feet? And worst case scenario, will we have to leave in a hurry? And will we have to leave to some extent or responsible for a lot of partners we've had on the ground who've helped us achieve our goals on the ground, even only for a perhaps temporary period. But we've got partners who've risked their lives to help us achieve our goals on the ground. To what extent are we responsible for them? And how much is this going to cost? And this has to really be thought of in the planning stages for future activities we do in partnership or involving other countries, so that we're aware from the start, this is how much it's going to cost. This is we've got to have proper risk registers in place from the start for best case scenario and also worst case scenario. How much is going to cost? How many people are going to be at risk? What's the plan if things don't go as we hope they will? And hopefully then we'll avoid such large sums of money, such large costs in the future.
Adnan, whenever there's a data leak at a company, an executive normally resigns. Are you surprised there haven't been any political resignations or indeed military demotions or resignations because of this?
Yes, I think the fact that this had been kept in place for several years and many people within Parliament weren't aware of it, there has to be some form of accountability here.
And tell me, do you really think we might see some resignations, or will this be quickly kind of brushed under the carpet?
I think the problem is that this has occurred over 2 successive governments. The Labour government is blaming the Conservatives for it and vice versa. As a result of that, I don't believe there will be any resignations.
And final point to you, Gulwali. In your experience of living in Afghanistan, is the Taliban likely to forget about this after a few weeks, or will that list be kept and will the people on it always have to look over their shoulders?
I would hope so. I mean, the Taliban say the right things in public, but in private, maybe the situation is different. I hope they forget it and just move on and forgive and treat people fairly and justly. So the reason Afghans are fleeing is because of the Taliban suppression, although the Taliban doesn't want to accept that, saying, people are leaving for economic reasons and others. And also just on the point about the money, I mean, the West were very happy to spend billions, if not trillions, on war, but they're not willing to spend a few billions and bringing people to safety or providing opportunities and freedoms to people. So yeah, it's contradictory and it's quite double standard. But I'm hoping that the people could, Afghans could return, could live in Afghanistan and live in peace and live in security and live where their lives are not at risk. But that is not the possibility in the near future. And I hope the Taliban learns to not be stubborn and hard-headed and actually, treat its people fairly and justly. Otherwise, all the educated Afghans, as I said, have flee the country. Whomever is left, they will also leave because there is no possibility or hope or opportunities for them to continue living under such a, such a regime and such a government.
And Gulwali, one final question to you. Adnan mentioned a figure of compensation which he felt would be acceptable, a 5-figure sum. That could be as little as £10,000 for having a target on your back for life with the Taliban after you.
To be fair, money is important, but ultimately we need to bring people to safety. Especially those who are on the list and also those who applied and who worked. There has to be lenience, because I remember doing some advisory work, as I mentioned, with the Home Office, and when people were evacuated, there were a lot of Afghans who were left behind. And the Home Office and the government promised, when we had meetings with ministers, that they would be brought through a special family reunification routes and people will be able to reunite. So for me, the most important focus needs to be getting people to safety first, and then we can discuss the finances and the compensation later on.
Gulwali, thank you to Adnan and Joe as well. Thank you all so much. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.